Estamos aqui no podcast sobre a Sil São Paulo, entrevistando duas personalidades do mundo da cirurgia minimamente invasiva. Two personalities of the world of minimal uh, incision surgery. Eh, Vamos iniciar com um colega aqui de Belo Horizonte que nos deixa sempre perplexo nas suas cirurgias, em todos os lugares onde nós assistimos um procedimento, principalmente ao vivo, a coragem e o desempenho, e a gente aprende cada vez mais nesse sentido. Alex, fala aí de onde você é e o que você pode falar para o pessoal da Sobracil São Paulo, junto com o Martini.
Bom, primeiro um prazer, Siongoli, essa amizade de longo tempo e a admiração que eu tenho também por você, os trabalhos que você tem
Imagina.
feito. É, realmente, a gente trabalha há muito tempo em cirurgias minimamente invasivas e esse trabalho, parte dele, eu acho que é assim, de passar para as outras pessoas os aprendizados que a gente foi tendo ao longo do tempo, e acho que a gente dividir isso aí é extremamente importante. Então, toda vez que a gente pode, tanto através de cirurgias ao vivo, através de apresentações e tudo, a gente procura mostrar a maneira como a gente faz, o que que a gente mudou ao longo do tempo e como é que a gente foi evoluindo. E isso faz com que as pessoas possam aprender sem ter que cometer os mesmos erros, sem ter que passar as mesmas dificuldades que a gente passou lá atrás, né? E nesse caminho aí eu tive vários grandes amigos que eu fiz na cirurgia panturbiliar do mundo inteiro. Um deles é o John, que está aqui do lado, que é referência mundial em
Our
cirurgia
company.
robótica. So, I'll just telling about the history
Your performance,
of
where you performance,
training, surgery,
education.
minimal invasive, how do it, how the evolution through the time on my practice. And I'm saying you were very important and still are. And I'm very grateful for your friendship. And um, you could tell us a little bit of your day by day practice. And I know you have fellowship program for foreigners in your service. A lot of people from all parts of the world have been training with you. And if you can tell a little bit of for the Brazilian society, it would be great.
How you're feeling the transformation, video surgery to robotic surgery.
Yeah. So my own pathway to how I got where I am is an important talk.
Please introduce
Yeah. Well,
yourself.
my name is John Martini. I am a HPV surgeon in the United States in Charlotte, North Carolina. My probably focus is minimally invasive robotic HPV surgery and specifically, and the pathway to where I am now was a long and windy path. I trained in general surgery, finished that 26 years ago, and then I spent time as a general surgeon in the U.S. Air Force in the military, doing everything: trauma surgery, breast surgery,
Wow.
colorectal surgery, hernia surgery, and so that was
Robotic
no,
surgery in
no,
trauma.
way before robotic, way before. This is
Wait.
2000 to 2004. There was no robots yet,
Okay.
even in America. So I grew up mostly in open surgery and starting to do minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery. So in my training, I learned to do laparoscopic foregut surgery, hernia surgery, gallbladders, obviously. When I finished in the military as a general surgeon, those 4 years were very formative. I got very, very good at being a minimally invasive general surgeon. But I knew that I wanted to do some more complicated surgery, so I think fellowship training is critical for that. So I went back and did an HPV and liver transplant fellowship uh, in Montreal. Now, that was like a step backwards because that went from I was doing lap, everything in the transplant fellowship was open, right? Open liver transplants, open liver resections, open
Yeah,
pancreas
it's
resections,
important.
because no one really was doing much of that at the time. when I came to back to the United States from Canada, that was when I first experienced seeing a robot. And this was about 2005, 2006. And it was then that I started doing some robotics early on, very selective cases. But over the next 20 years, I continued doing more and more complex
Complicated.
robotics. And these three modalities, open liver surgery, laparoscopic s- surgery,
Yeah.
and robotics, all kind of grew up together. But at some point, I knew that I would never be able to do some of the complex open surgeries with straight laparoscopy.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's when
It's
in my
interesting.
mind it switched and I said, hey, this robot will let me do more complex things, like very complicated pancreas surgeries and liver surgeries. And so from that point on, that took about 5 or 6 years before I abandoned laparoscopy. I stopped doing
Yeah.
lap,
It's
even for things like cholecystectomies, because I think to be really good at anything, you want to do it a lot. So for me, when I'm training residents and I'm training fellows, sure, I don't need a robot to do a gallbladder.
okay.
I don't need it, but it's a training platform. So it's you
Remote
learn
scan.
on the easy cases, and then when you don't want to jump in on a Whipple, the
Oh, right.
first robot case to be a Whipple doesn't make any
No.
sense. So I think it's really important to be very thoughtful about how you get into doing robotics. I think you start at the basics. The cases that you probably don't need a robot for are the ideal case for learning and training residents. So in my practice, I'm at a big teaching hospital. We have general surgery residents. We have HPB fellows. I even have an international robotic HPB fellowship. Everyone has to start somewhere. So residents, we start them out training on easy cases, and so they build up over years. When I bring an international fellow in, let's say they're coming in from Switzerland or
See?
Australia or Korea,
Brazil.
or Brazil,
Brazil.
they often will come very well trained in general surgery or HPB surgery, but they have never done a robotic case. So they have to start at the beginning as well. And so I have to train them from the very get-go, starting out with easy cases, or in my practice, starting out with segments of cases. So part of so let's say for a robotic Whipple, I'll have the fellow start with some easy cases of taking the gallbladder, doing some of the dissection, doing some of the reconstruction. And so it's a stepwise progression. And I think that's a safe and probably the best way to train people to do what I do.
I can tell you, I've experienced a visit to John's Hospital, and it's amazing the whole thing that they do there, and the training, the fellowship, and this kind of exchanging and experience is very important. You see how doing things in different way that you're used to. You see that some things that you see there, you're gonna immediately incorporate your practice. Other things you say, well, this is a tough case to do it my way. Maybe I can try the John's way to do this same thing. So it's fantastic have this opportunity to interact, to see things, some things different the way you do it, this is I think one of the main issues for Sobrasil itself.
For Brazil itself. What you feeling about this robotic armament, this diverse uh,
The
robotic
diversity of
teams?
the new diversity on robotic platform, the new platforms. How do you see them?
Well, I'm excited because, I think a lot of us have always worried that there was one dominant player in the field, and monopolies are not good for anybody or anything, and whether that's cars or televisions or robots. So it's good to see a lot of new things come to the market. And sometimes we'll look at a robotic platform and we'll say, well, you know what? I don't like this. I don't like that. It's not as good as the DaVinci Xi or the DV5, but that's good. And those companies will, I think,
Yeah,
continue
I
continue
think
to
so.
process and evolve. So I think that let's take, for example, cell phones. Like at one point there was only one company that made
Yeah,
a smartphone.
it's,
Now there are half a
it's
dozen or
very
more.
interesting diversity.
Yeah, so I think that's good. At the end of the day, we just had a session on complications.
This
Uh,
is this is very bad,
So,
but
it's
it's
there's
necessary.
still you can have the best robot in the world, and if you have a surgeon that doesn't have the experience or judgment, you can still have bad outcomes. I think, you know, everyone's interested to see what artificial intelligence is going to do to help make certain procedures safer or make surgeons more aware. And the analogy I usually tell you is when you drive a car, if I start to veer out of my lane, the car tells me, "Hey, wake up, you need maybe take a coffee,
Yeah,
the lane control." Or if somebody stops in front of me and I'm not paying
alert you.
attention, it'll actually stop my car before I rear end another car. I think that there's almost certainly going to be surgical robots that have some of these safety features to tell the surgeon, "Hey, you're you're going to divide the common bile duct. You don't belong over on the right side of
Yeah.
the bile duct. You need to be over to the left." And I think that's coming. It's just a matter of how soon we'll have those tools available.
And
Absolutely sure about it.
a little message to our associated.
Yeah,
Little but
Portuguese or
important.
in,
Little but important. In Portuguese, and
Português?
John speaking
Ok.
English, a little
Ah,
message to our associate.
a mensagem que eu falo é que a gente está vivendo um momento de transformação no mundo, a gente está passando por um momento de inovação tecnológica gigante e que essa inovação toda não vai substituir a melhor prática médica.
Ótimo.
Então, que o treinamento, que a capacitação profissional continua sendo o caminho para você ter bons resultados, para você ter progresso profissional, para você ser capaz de fazer coisas mais complexas. Isso passa obrigatoriamente por treinamento, por troca de experiência, por estudo, porque todo avanço da tecnologia não vai ser útil se não for casado a um desenvolvimento profissional, a uma pessoa que esteja habilitada e capacitada para tomar decisões corretas. E esse auxílio da inteligência artificial que está vindo vai ser muito importante, mas não vai substituir de novo o bom julgamento, a boa tomada de decisão que vai ser ainda de responsabilidade do médico. Então, acho que o grande caminho é a gente abraçar essas novas tecnologias, a gente aprender a utilizá-las e acoplá-las à nossa prática médica, sabe, Giongoli? Eu acho que o segredo é o treinamento, eu não tenho muita dúvida.
Então vocês estão vendo que há necessidade de não interromper treinamento. E para isso precisa ficar associado a Sobracil pagar o boleto. Agora, a little message, but important to our trainees.
A message to the trainees. Yeah, I think when I tell people sort of the pathway that I took, I think one of the messages is um, to continue training. When you finish your general surgery residency, some people think, "Oh, I'm finished learning." No, you've just begun. And surgery is a lifelong learning process. I still learn every time I come to a meeting. I'll learn something new, meet somebody new. I think
We are here
that's really important. The
for
reason that
this.
we have surgical meetings and surgical societies is to
Yeah.
interact and learn from each other, even if it's learning from others' mistakes. So I think that's messages when you finish your general surgery training, that's just the beginning. And then there's fellowship and there's more training courses and things like that. That's probably the most important message.
John, Alexandre, very grateful to you speak to us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
My pleasure.
Ale, como sempre, um grande abraço.